Hey guys, what's up? It's Public back with another video, and today we're actually going to deep dive one of our talents that got added, or I guess like changed it a little bit, or maybe its meaning is a lot actually better now. Today we're going to go over Surrender to Madness. A lot of you guys have been asking me like, hey Public, is Surrender still kind of like ridiculous to use? Is it really hard? Is it skillful? Is it like scary or, punishing like it was back in Legion or things like that? And I wanted to make this video kind of dispel some of those rumors and set you at ease a little bit. So let's talk about how that talent works and how it feels to actually use it. Okay, so first things first, what is Surrender to Madness? So Surrender to Madness is one of our options for our level 50 talents, and it gives you access to this new ability. So Surrender to Madness, a 1.5 minute cooldown, deals some damage instantly to that target, and then activates Void Form. And that actually is just like a little Void Eruption cast on a single target, so it doesn't AoE like Void Eruption actually does, but then puts you into Void Form immediately. So there's no cast time here, you just immediately go in, similar to how we had in our previous talents there before. I think it was Dark Ascension is what it was called. So they kind of merged that in here a little bit. So instantly activates Void Form, and then it applies a debuff to a target, right? And for the next 25 seconds, your insanity generating abilities generate more insanity, and you can cast while moving. So you get that for the duration as long as that target still lives. And that's kind of the key here. So there's really two components to the talent. The first one is you get an instant Void Form, right? Which is huge. Like, getting an extra Void Form, that's a big deal. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown normally, so getting an extra one of those doubles our effective uptime, which is good. Now the problem is, you have to actually kill the target that you put it on, right? So if you cast it on something and they don't die, you die instead. And that's kind of where the gamble comes in with this talent. So you kind of have to choose what you want to do. So you basically just need to cast it on something that's about to die to get the most benefit. Specifically, you want them to die basically right after you use it 25 seconds later, because it's a 25-second debuff. Now, the important thing to know here is that the value from this talent, like sure, the insane generation is good, sure, casting while moving is good, but getting that extra Void Form, that's actually the big power point of the talent, which you get even if the target only lives for a second after you put the debuff on it, right? And this is kind of where I've talked a little bit about sniping a target, maybe with Shadow Word Death or other spells. Surrender to Madness is very, very similar. If you have an ad fight, especially if you're kind of newer to the spec and you don't quite know when a target's going to die, or it's maybe too risky, you can just be like, oh, hey, the target's got 5% health left. I'll go and cast Surrender to Madness. You'll still get the Void Form. You'll just lose that movement speed and the insanity generation increase after the target dies, right? So it's effectively a Void Form creating spell. And that's really where the value is with the spell. Sure, if you let the target live, you get the extra insanity generation, which is good, don't get me wrong, it is very strong. And the movement can be nice too, depending on what you're doing. But again, the bigger benefit is just getting that extra Void Form. So this actually has a couple different lanes or strategies where you can use it to really optimize its use. But on the flip side, it's much less punishing to use than it was before. You're not kind of racing against this giant large clock. Don't feel like it's super punishing. There is kind of like an easy mode version to the talent. That being said, in certain content pieces like Mythic Plus, they're like controlling when an ad dies is very easy, or it's a lot easier than it is, say, in raiding, because there's just so many ads, so many different targets. You have a lot of opportunities to get the most use out of this talent. And that's kind of where the problem space comes in, because if you go into a raiding environment, well, maybe the fight doesn't have ads, and then you really can't use this talent at all. It's not worth it. You really want to have it on a fight where there is kind of a consistent ad that comes out that dies on a very set schedule. Otherwise, it just doesn't work and doesn't make any sense. So right now, the Lady Enerva Darkvein fight inside of Castle Nathria looks to be a very strong candidate for this talent, maybe a few others as well. But the important thing is you do kind of want to desync this with Void Form, right? Because if the ad comes out and you have Void Form available, well, Surrender to Madness value doesn't really give you much there, because you could just use Void Form instead. So it really comes in handy whenever there are ads that you can use the talent on. You're ready, okay, let's use my cooldown here. Let's burst these ads down. But, if Void Form's also off cooldown, then it doesn't really give you much. So you kind of want it to be up in the middle of that Void Form cooldown. And that's where if you get these kind of ranges of like, okay, we have ads spawning about every 45 seconds. Well, use your Void Form for the first set. Use your Surrender to Madness for the second set. By the time the third set comes back, you have your first Void Form again, which is basically how the Lady Enerva fight times out almost perfectly. So that's kind of like your ideal scenario for this talent. But, even if you don't like this design or it's not something you're a fan of, there are still other good options that you can use, and it doesn't mean it's like super broken or anything. I think depending on how you use it, it could be very, very strong in the right hands, but I don't actually think it's super, super impressive by any means. So don't feel too pressured into it. And again, very, very easy from a Mythic Plus perspective to use this. It just kind of depends on what kind of pulls you're doing, right? Are you doing this one giant massive pull that dies pretty quickly? Or is it kind of a bunch of small pulls where you can be like, okay, I'll use Void Form for this first pull. Second pull, Void Form's not up yet. I'll use Surrender for that one. And you kind of alternate pulls that you can have a larger uptime of Void Form. That way you don't have this kind of like dead damage while you're waiting for Void Form to come back. So it does have a lot of use cases in that regard. So I think overall, I really like this talent as an option. It's funny how the Void Form rework injected so much life into this talent because it really hasn't changed that much. But honestly, it's a lot of fun to use, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So don't freak out too much. It's a lot easier than people might be thinking. So hope this kind of overview has helped you guys. And that's all we have for this video. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Big shout out to all the Patreons that are supporting me right now. This content would not be possible without the amazing support from them and everyone else. Thank you so much to everyone that's supporting me here. It means a lot to me. I can dedicate a lot more time to this stuff than I could otherwise, which is great. Hopefully you guys are seeing that content reflected in all the work that I'm doing with this and SimC and WeakAuras. It's for sure been a crazy time with beta and everything. So again, thanks so much for watching this video. We'll see you in the next one.